After a few months using this 60mm, I decided it's time to wrap up this review. I'll be showing you how has been my experience with it, along with samples shot in RAW. It's an APS-C lens also available for Micro Four Thirds, but I'm using it on the Fuji XT2 here. The short version is that it's a great lens in the context of being priced below $200. It's not perfect, but for me there isn't a perfect APS-C macro lens yet. The lens body is all metal and doesn't feel cheap. I especially like the dark grey mount they used, that's different. I can't tell you how it will be holding up some years down the road, but it does feel very solid. The aperture ring is clickless. I'm not a fan of that, because after I walk a bit with the lens and find a subject to photograph, I will have to check if the ring haven't moved and if it's still sitting at the last aperture I used. It's a minor thing to complain, but I wish it had clicks. The focus ring is very smooth, it's enough to be able to switch focus just by pushing it with one finger instead of pinching it to turn. This is nice for me since I like to shoot single-handedly. I'm usually holding the flash on my other hand. It's also worth mentioning it has 9 aperture blades. That makes for a really nice bokeh. The design of this Mark II version is a huge improvement over the previous one, being an internal focus this time. The extending barrel is something that pushes me away from trying a lot of macro lenses, and in this version everything is internal and it makes the Mark I look like some weird prototype in comparison. And something from the lens design itself that bothers me most is just the lack of electronic aperture control, because maintaining a bright viewfinder when shooting top-down makes the usability so much easier. But so far no third-party manufacturer made a macro lens with aperture coupling. It would be great if someone did. Laowa did recently with their 50mm for Micro Four Thirds, but so far none for APS-C. I get asked a lot about the working distance of this lens. I measured it at about 8 cm from the tip of the lens to the subject. That's a pretty big distance, and it's enough to be able to use attachments to increase magnification, like extension tubes or close-up filters. Chromatic aberration is very well controlled. I didn't see any noticeable CA during the time I used it for actual shots. The samples I'm showing don't have correction applied, but when testing for sharpness I did see some lateral aberration. I always had the expectation that every macro lens would be perfect from corner to corner, and it's safe to say that this lens keeps that standard, even not being that expensive. Now for the sharpness test, I'm focusing at an angle to be safer in not mistaking depth of field blurriness from real lack of sharpness. And here's the results. 2.8 the sharpness is constant from corner to corner, and as I said before, I noticed there's a bit of lateral aberration visible there. Still it's pretty small. At f4 the sharpness just improves everywhere. At 5.6 sharpness keeps improving and the loci is almost gone. At f8 the sharpness seems to plateau at its maximum and the loci is completely gone. At f11 there's a small dip in sharpness, that's hardly noticeable and you have to inspect it really close to see that. And then at f22 there's suddenly a huge drop in sharpness caused by diffraction, because it's a bigger stop change there. This makes the image blurry even when viewed at full size. So the aperture I photograph most of the time with this lens sits between f11 and 22. There isn't a full stop there marked on the aperture ring, so here's how it looks going back a bit. It's not as sharp as f11, but it's the best compromise between depth of field and sharpness. Now, a lot of people want macro lenses to double as portrait lenses for some reason, but I advise against that with this one. I know it's sad because it has a beautiful bokeh, but there's an usability issue. The focus throw between 1 meter and infinity is too small, so it's pretty difficult to do delicate focusing at that distant range. It's possible of course, but we are much better, much safer going with a dedicated portrait lens. At just 1:1 magnification you can almost fill the frame with a Hon AB, and that's not much for me. Now I'm gonna start showing some higher magnification shots using a Hinox MSN close-up filter. I don't recommend this filter for this lens as I think it's overkill, but it's the only one I could fit with the adapter rings I had. For most of the shots with the filter, I am not at the maximum magnification. Here's a housefly shot with and without the filter to give an idea of the magnification gain I like. I also thought this snail was a good subject to show with scale and give you an idea of the increased magnification. Now, I know what I'm going to say will sound paradoxical, but shooting at higher magnification is actually easier for me. I found out it's very difficult to shoot at just 1:1, because everything looks more or less in focus on the screen. It's harder to judge focus overall. Of course, considering if you shoot top down and not with a wide aperture for stacking or whatever. At higher magnifications it's much easier to tell what's in focus and what isn't. Of course you could just open the aperture a bit, but I am always looking for the most depth of field I can get within the limits of diffraction. This is just physics and it's not something specific to this lens, but then again it's a nuisance that would be fixed by having the electronic aperture control. All in all, I'm very happy to see 7Artisans improving their design significantly over the first version, and makes me hopeful to keep seeing more improvements over the time with new lens launches. It's always a good thing to have more macro lenses in the market at more accessible prices like this. I think it's a doorway for people to get into this kind of photography when they don't want to try adapting older lenses or DIY methods like lens reversing. And if it's something with the potential to make more people notice the wildlife or nature around them more closely, I start to see it as valuable for citizen science as well, instead of just photography in the artistic sense. It's not uncommon to register new behaviors or species for the first time when it comes to these overlooked animals, even if it's just looking inside our gardens. If you want to see more of my photos, here's where you can find me. And if you are interested in getting this lens, I'm leaving an affiliate link on the description. Shall you buy through it, you'll be supporting my work and this channel. Thank you for watching.